So great. So thank you. So historically, American Jews have been among the staunchest advocates for the strict separation of church and state, separationism, and nowhere more so than in pre-college education. In this sphere, separationism has translated into opposition to religion in public schools and opposition of public aid to parochial schools. The legality and wisdom of these practices, known collectively as the school question, has been part of American politics since public schools began. My paper concerns a formative episode in American Jewry's engagement with the school question and separationism, the so-called Cincinnati Bible War of 1869. It examines this controversy and how it affected American Jews' pursuit of equality, security, and flourishing as Jews. It also argues that the controversy reflected struggle between Reform Jews and traditional Jews over primacy and legitimacy, hence the Cincinnati Torah War. So, first, the lead up to the controversy. Cincinnati began operating public schools in 1829, and from the outset, it started the day with mandatory readings from the Protestant or King James Bible. In 1842, Cincinnati Bishop James Purcell, later Archbishop, asked the school board to excuse Catholic children from such reading. It agreed and made it available to non-Protestants more generally. Over the next decade or so, Purcell turned his attention away from reforming public schools to expanding parochial schools for Catholic children. To recruit children to these schools, he advised Catholic parents that Protestant-based public schools threatened their children's spiritual health. He further threatened to deny First Communion to Catholic children unless they had attended 2 years of parochial school. Purcell also demanded, unsuccessfully, that the school board provide parochial schools with a proportionate share of public school funds. Not all Catholics heeded Archbishop Purcell's call for their children to attend Catholic schools. Some remained committed to public schooling, which was tuition-free and offered a better secular education. These Catholics now sought full equality for non-Protestants in public schools. It no longer sufficed for non-Protestants to be excused from Bible reading. Such readings had to be eliminated altogether. The flag of Protestantism, the King James Bible, they demanded, had to be lowered. Few Cincinnati Jews joined the call to remove Bible reading from public schools. Rather, most came to embrace public schooling wholeheartedly, Bible or no Bible. As Catholic schools grew, Jewish day schools contracted. Some Jewish leaders tried to slow this trend, but to no avail. By the mid-1860s, virtually all Jewish children in Cincinnati attended public schools. On November 1st, 1869, the Cincinnati School Board took a bold step to make public schools more attractive to non-Protestants and, above all, to Catholics. It passed a resolution that prohibited, quote, religious instruction and the reading of religious books, including the Holy Bible. It declared that the true object of this rule is to allow the children of the parents of all sects and opinions to enjoy alike the benefit of the common school fund. In this way, the board removed a major spiritual obstacle to Catholic attendance, while also undercutting Purcell's demand, the rationale for that demand, for a portion of the school funds. The resolution was supported by a coalition of lay Catholics and liberal Protestants. Evangelical board members opposed the resolution. The 2 Jewish board members split their votes, one for the resolution and one against. A group of evangelical Protestant taxpayers challenged the new policy in court on grounds of public necessity. The state had a duty to make its citizens moral. It could not do so without religious instruction, and religious instruction can mean only one thing, reading from the Protestant Bible. This argument persuaded the Cincinnati Superior Court, and on February 15th, 1870, it issued an injunction that prohibited the school board from removing religious instruction. On appeal, the school board persuaded the Ohio Supreme Court to permit the new policy to go forward. and so ended the controversy. The Ohio Supreme Court's decision was written by Justice John Welch. His rationale for the court's decision was narrow and sounded in principles of administrative law. The school board had not abused its lawful discretion. The federal and state constitutions did not expressly require public schools to provide religious exercises, and the state statute expressly authorized the school board to, quote, make such regulations as to them shall appear proper and expedient. Note that the decision did not bar the Cincinnati School Board from requiring reading. It only recognized its discretion to do so. The opinion was also binding only in Ohio. The issue would not be resolved at the national level until the US Supreme Court held that the First Amendment's Establishment Clause constrained both state and federal constitutions, and subsequently held that mandatory Bible reading in public schools violated the Establishment Clause. Yet the minor decision had a broader significance. Justice Welch's opinion was the first endorsement of the principle of separation of church and state by a state Supreme Court. Bible reading in public schools, he argued, violated what he called the doctrine of hands off. Let the state not only keep its hands off of religion, he declared, but let it also see to it that religious sects keep their hands off each other. Now, I have this section of my paper called The Silence of the Jews. As I've indicated throughout, Cincinnati's Jews played a minor role in the lead up to the Bible War. They let others, lay Catholics and liberal Protestants, take the lead in making public schools more amenable to Jews and other non-Protestants. The silence of the Jews is startling, to say the least, because they arguably had more at stake in the controversy and were more vulnerable than any other party. Readings from the New Testament impose a special burden on Jews as a class. Through such readings, the public schools teach non-Jewish students that Judaism is false, and that Jews are rejectors of God. On one hand, Bible readings discriminated against all non-Protestants on equal terms. On the other hand, the New Testament readings taught that Jews were uniquely deserving, on some level, of discrimination. Second, the Jews were uniquely vulnerable. By closing Jewish day schools, Jews left themselves no alternatives to attending public schools. The existence of Catholic schools, by contrast, gave Catholic parents a viable alternative. They could credibly threaten to vote with their feet unless the school board stopped Bible readings. Jews had no such leverage. Although Cincinnati's Jews may have been silent prior to the Cincinnati controversy, that changed. This is exemplified by an important sermon given in May 1870 by Max Lilienthal, the rabbi at one of Cincinnati's leading Reform congregations and one of the most prominent leaders of the American Reform movement. In this sermon, wrote a fellow rabbi, he laid down what he considered the platform which Jews should support in the Bible and the schools controversy. In it, first, he gave a full-throttled endorsement of the principle of separationism. Quote, no union of state and church under any shape or form whatsoever. Second, he put forth what became the mainstream Jewish answer to the school question. First, that the Bible should be excluded from public schools, and second, that public funds should not be used to support parochial schools. Lastly, he advocated a position on how American Jews should educate their children. Quote, Bible or no Bible, our children will visit the public schools. Second, Jewish education would be relegated off premises. Our Sabbath schools and synagogues give us ample room and time to impart to them the required religious instruction. Now, one of the most striking things about Lilienthal's sermon is how much of it seems tangential to the actual Cincinnati Bible War controversy, as well as being gratuitously anti-Catholic. The minor case did not raise the question of public funding of parochial schools. Yet here we see Lilienthal presenting that position as a corollary. The minor case did not address directly the question of whether children should be pressured or required to attend public schools, but rather the terms of such attendance. Yet here we see Lilienthal presenting the imperative to attend public school and eschew parochial schools as a corollary of the minor opinion. The positions that Lilienthal derived from the Cincinnati controversy were directly at odds with the Archbishop Purcell's, who sought universal attendance by Catholics at Catholic schools and at public expense. Yet in a larger sense, Lilienthal's sermon was in keeping with the spirit that animated the school board's resolution, which is the liberal Protestant vision of American identity. He caught the melody, even if he went beyond the words. From the liberal Protestant perspective, Catholic schools and their supporters were un-American because they took children away from the preeminent place where robustly American and religiously compartmentalized identity was formed, and instead cultivated a robustly religious and non-compartmentalized identity, and furthermore, one that called upon them to participate in a transnational project, global Catholicism. What was going on here, I believe, is that Lilienthal was taking aim not only at Catholicism per se, but at Jewish Catholicism, that is traditional Judaism, which resembles Purcell's vision of Catholicism in at least two key respects. First, it uses education to cultivate a robustly Jewish identity and one that entails participation in a transnational project, the notional hope for the Jewish people's restoration to the land of Israel. It was not simply parochial schools and Jewish day schools that Rabbi Lilienthal objected to, but the participation in a transnational project, which detracted from Americanism. The platform that Lilienthal announced in Vicksburg gave Reform Judaism, or promised to give Reform Judaism, an upper hand over traditional Judaism in their competition for adherence and validation from the larger community. His platform called for lowering the barriers for Jews to attend public schools while increasing the civic rewards. It opposed lowering the financial obstacles to Jewish day schools and increasing the civic penalties for doing so. In this respect, the Cincinnati controversy was not only a struggle between Protestants and Catholics over Bible reading schools, but an intra-religious struggle among Jews over the proper place and meaning and centrality of the Jewish tradition. Thank you.